It's soul-searching time for the Tar Heels because just as quickly as things have flipped bad, they could flip right back to good.
This is Tyler Zeller, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Tuesday, January 20th, 2026. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You've joined me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network out there. Thanks for making us your first listen or watch on this Tuesday. It's great to be together. Welcome all you everydayers, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and our insiders as well. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Coming up on the show today, going to have a conversation about just a small little phrase that somebody shared with me the other day, that it's soul-searching time for the Tar Heels. I wholeheartedly agree. We'll talk about it. Carolina stays ranked in the poll, 22nd. Did not think that would happen, but it did, and we'll look at that. There's an issue with three-point shooting. We've seen all these issues, but three-point shooting continues to be one of them. Also, Indiana, national champions. What? I think the obvious question for us is, could that be the Tar Heels? Is there a world in which that happens? We'll look at it. We'll talk about it. Let's dive right into this, though. I was texting with Mike Bova. Mike is somebody that we've been messaging back and forth for several years now since I've started this show. And Mike lives up in the Buffalo area, so it was kind of a tough weekend for him. They're big Bills fans. They're big Tar Heels fans, so things did not go well. Unfortunately. But one of the things Mike texted me was that it's soul-searching time for these Tar Heels. And somehow, just in the frustration of everything that's going on and the way things have come together, I hadn't really stopped to think about, you know what? That's right. I had been thinking so much about where the X's and O's of it all, about the talent and why isn't it coming together, that I hadn't yet stopped to think about, you know what? Now's the time to look inside and figure out who you are, what you are, and what you want. Since the calendar turned to 2026, things have unraveled. Carolina is 1-3 in these first couple weeks of January. Could we rewind the clock back to 2025? No, we can't, obviously. But I completely agree with Mike here, because the question is, obviously these guys want it, and they want it bad. They're competitors. They're out there. They're doing it. Coach Davis talked about it, how desperately they wanted it. You know, they're coming off the Stanford loss. Things were so bad last Wednesday, and they really wanted to get back to, which is another concerning issue, really. But now that you come home, you've played 3 road games over the course of 17 days, a little bit less than that, but you get the point. So now you return home against the Notre Dame team tomorrow night, and you have an opportunity for a reset here. But as part of that, it's time for each of these individuals to stop and sit down and really think about what they want to be. And look, sometimes I know there are scheme issues, there are whatever and all this. But sometimes you got to stop and look in the mirror and say, who are we as a team? Am I doing everything in my power to make sure that I'm holding up my end of the bargain? Everyone as part of a team has to do that, because if anybody doesn't, that is a weak link and things get let down. So it takes me looking at tape and having real and honest conversations with myself to say, am I doing what I need to do as a defender? Am I communicating? Am I switching accurately? Am I defending within team defensive principles? Am I running our offensive sets the way I'm supposed to? Am I making the right moves with the ball in terms of passing it? Am I taking the shots that I should be taking? Am I kicking it when I should be kicking it? Am I getting all my reps in practice? Am I going 100% with that? We're going to talk about football in a little bit, but man, I look at how disciplined that Indiana football team is, man. And I look at the heart and the guts of a Fernando Mendoza. And it's like, while that's not everything, man, it is a big thing to be so disciplined in every single little thing that you're doing, that you're not missing opportunities because of a missed defensive assignment, a missed box out, a missed whatever it is. Are you doing every little thing you possibly can? Because I think sometimes people aren't. And I'm not saying that just about the Tar Heels. I'm just saying in general, I think that's the case. And so it's a moment to say, are you guys doing everything you can? Are you so locked in? Are you holding each other accountable? Whether player to player, coach to player, player to coach, whatever it is, are you doing all of those things to make sure that you're getting to where you need to be? And part of this is, let's be honest, as quickly as this has flipped negative, remember, Carolina was 13-1 coming into calendar year 2026, 12-1 in non-con play. They had started 1-0 by beating Florida State on New Year's Eve, December 30th. And the script has quickly flipped from the defensive capability. And yes, there were some cracks that you could see as you watched the team defense, but it wasn't this. It was not this. And yes, there were already the free throw issues, but some of the other things were not there. And you look at how quickly that has downturned. And it makes me truly and honestly believe that, let's think about it like a batter in baseball. In baseball, you are one of the best to ever do it if you fail 70% of the time. Obviously, that's not true in basketball. If you're only shooting 30% of the time, it's not going to work. But what I want to say is this. Some of the best hitters in the world go through bad slumps. And sometimes there's a mechanical tweak that happened that a hitting coach will catch and just fix that mechanical thing. Or maybe there's a slight tell that you're giving away. Maybe there's some schematic thing where it's like, oh, our opponents have started responding to this, and now we need to pitch him differently, or whatever it is. Sometimes in the middle of the season, you recognize that you've not made enough adjustments, or you recognize that this has happened or that has happened. It feels like Carolina is at one of those crossroads where things have suddenly flipped very negative. And there might just be one or two tweaks that need to happen to get it flipped back. For example, Derek Dixon moving into the starting lineup Saturday. It was a slow start, but things came along. He tied a career high in points. Maybe now, coming home, you rock with that lineup again. Maybe something like that is the flip, is the switch. And obviously, it's not going to be similar to Kendall Marshall replacing Larry Drew, right? It's not like suddenly Derek Dixon's going to be getting 15 assists per game as was Kendall's MO. But what is Derek's way of flipping that for Carolina? Can the defense, like, it's not like it's a mystery as what the defensive problems are. People are lining them out for you. So if you're this team, you got to get together and say, all right, boys, you know what? I'm messing up. I got to be better. What about you? What do you need to do to be? It's like that kind of stuff. It's time to soul search, because as quickly as it flipped bad, it could flip right back positive. And that's what I'm watching for. That's what I need to see. And that starts tomorrow night against Notre Dame, because as quickly as you have that game, you got to go to Charlottesville on Saturday. And y'all have heard me say it. The Virginia Cavaliers right now are playing as the second best team in the ACC. So if things continue how they've been the last 4 games, that could be a brutal road trip this weekend. But if you could flip, and you could find what's going wrong and change it, you could go and reset your ACC season by not only beating Notre Dame tomorrow night at home, but then going to Charlottesville and reminding everyone of what Carolina did with some of their other performances in non-conference play. Massive opportunity, and you got to get ready for it. Okay, now, one of the issues this season that needs to get flipped is that the Tar Heels are struggling behind the arc. Can Carolina figure some things out and get moving in the right direction there? We'll look at it. We'll talk about it coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about game time, y'all, there is nothing like getting into this college basketball season, man. It's mid-January. We are 7 regular season weeks away from the ACC tournament and then the selection show and all of that great stuff, man. There's nothing like being right here in the middle of it all. The energy, the pep band playing, all these moments you remember forever, but actually getting tickets sometimes, man, that becomes the hard part. The prices jump up on you at checkout. It's insane. That's why Game Time is here to give the advantage back to you, the fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college basketball tickets in just a few taps. We're just talking about the Carolina hosting Notre Dame tomorrow night. There are tickets right now on Game Time for as little as $19. Take advantage of it, man. That's a great Wednesday night outing. Go check it out. Plus, it's an earlier tip. It's a 7 o'clock tip, not a 9. Man, all the more reason. The app, too, the Game Time app, incredibly easy to use. You can go from browsing to buying in just a few minutes. I also really appreciate Game Time zone deals. Basically, you pick the section you want to sit in. Game Time picks the specific seat, and that's a way to save even more money. So take the guesswork out of buying college basketball tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply on your first purchase there. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Thanks for making Locked On Tar Heels your first listen or watch of the day and making the Locked On Network the #1 sports podcast network out there. Now take it up a level and go ad-free with our brand new Everydayers Club. Check it out, that perk and many others. That link's in the show notes, lockedontarheels.supercast.com. Okay, we've been looking at the various things that have been issues for North Carolina in this 4-game stretch where the Tar Heels are one and three. Excuse me. They were 1 of 4, I guess, really appropriate, we should say. We know that Carolina has been struggling mightily with defense. There are problems there that have to be fixed. We know that Carolina is struggling at the free throw line. They are outside the top 300 nationally from the stripe. That's got to change. But because of those two issues, one of the ones that started to get a little buried, and I want to bring it back to light, not to point out like, oh, look at how bad you are at this, but to say this is another area where I would like to see improvement, is the Tar Heels 3-point shooting. Right now it is an issue. The Tar Heels are shooting as a team 33.8%. That's outside the top 200 in the entire nation. That's not good enough. And part of the problem, there's multiple problems here, but the biggest problem is the dudes that are supposed to be the dudes are not. And not only that, but thankfully there are some other guys stepping up, but there's some other periphery guys that aren't helping either. And moreover, the issue is that it's the highest volume 3-point shooters that aren't delivering. So let's unpack the numbers of that and I'll explain what I'm talking about. Coming into the season, if I asked you, hey, who are going to be the dudes for Carolina from beyond the arc? Well, of course, it would be nice to have Tyler Nickel, who's off just killing it at Vandy. It'd be nice, like et cetera, whatever, fine. But one of the things I said this offseason is I believe that part of the reason it's going to work to have Seth Trimble in the lineup as your starting 2, who's not a prolific 3-point shooter, is because you're going to have Kyan starting at the 1 and Luka Bogavac starting at the 3, both of whom are essentially 40% 3-point shooters. Well, nah, that has not been the case. And in fact, neither of those dudes are in the starting lineup right now. Right now, it's Dixon and it's Jarin Stevenson, with Kyan and Luka coming off the bench. Yeah, there's that. Luka is shooting right now 31.3% from beyond the arc. For Kyan Evans, 30.7%. So when I say that Carolina as a team is shooting 33.8%, those dudes are both on the under. They're both bringing it down. These are supposed to be the 40% shooters that you can expect. Luka is essentially 9 percentage points below that, while Kyan is I guess they both kind of are if you average it out. Luka's 31.3, Kyan's 30.7. So they're, average that out to 31%. Anyway, they're essentially 9 percentage points below where Carolina needs them to be. Heck, even if they were shooting 36%, that would be helpful, but they're not. And so not only are these dudes who are supposed to be draining threes not doing it, but you've got these other guys that it was kind of question mark. How will they do? Seth Trimble shooting 30% from beyond the arc on 3.3 attempts a game. You've got Caleb Wilson shooting 23.5% from beyond the arc. Thankfully, he's taking less than one attempt a game, so that mitigates that a little bit because he's so good at everything else he does. And then you've got Jarin Stevenson, who it just continues to confound me. Jarin Stevenson, I truly, honestly believe, is a better three-point shooter than we've seen in any of his 2.5 years of college basketball. But he was not a good three-point shooter at Alabama either year. He goes through streaks where he'll do it. But, man, it's been rough this year as well. Again, 22.2% from Jarin Stevenson. So not only are Luka and Kyan shooting 31.3 and 30.7, but you've got Seth, Caleb, and Jarin shooting even worse than that. What that means is that the guys that right now are starting at 2, 3, and 4 are shooting 30, 23.5, and 22.5% from beyond the arc. In fact, I didn't even think about grabbing their totals. But Seth, 9 of 30. Jarin, 10 of 45. It's 19 of 75. Ooh, gross. And who was the other one I said? Jarin, Seth, and it's gone away. Jarin, Seth. Boo. Caleb Wilson. Good grief. There we go. 4 of 17. So those three guys, 19, 23 of 75, 80, like 23 out of 82 or something like that. That's close on the math. So your starting 2, 3, and 4 are shooting a combined 28% from beyond the arc. That is atrocious. Atrocious. That simply cannot be. And so when you look at that, it's going to make it nearly impossible to do the things you need to do. But thankfully, there's some guys that maybe you didn't expect to be shooting well from beyond the arc who are upholding some of it more capably. Henri Veesaar leading the team, 49%, and that's after going 1 of 6 on Saturday, so he was up above 50%. You've got Dixon second at 39.6%, Jaydon Young third at 37.5%, and Jonathan Powell fourth at 34.9%. So you got those 4 dudes essentially shooting 35% or better. And if technically Isaiah Denis leads the team, but he's only taken 7 threes, so we'll not count that. So it's great. You got Veesaar at 49, Dixon at 39.6, Jaydon Young at 37.5, and Jonathan Powell 34.9, essentially 35%. The problem, though, is literally of those 4 best three-point percentage shooters, the only one that's in the top 4 attempts. Check that. 2 of those 4 are in the top 4 attempts on this team. Jonathan Powell is 3rd, Derek Dixon is 4th, and then Henri Veesaar is 5th. If we go by 3-point attempts per game, it's Luka Bogavac first, Kyan Evans second, Jay Powell third, and then Seth Trimble 4th. So there are 4 guys attempting over 3 threes a game, and they're shooting 31, 30, and 30%. So there's multiple ways to try to think about this. Is it, hey, you got to keep getting shots from Luka and from Kyan because eventually they're going to fall. Eventually they're going to get back to their career average. Or is it, look, it is what it is. So what you got to focus on now is getting more shots for the 4 dudes that are canning them, which would be Veesaar, Dixon, Young, and Powell. Because the problem is each of those guys, outside of Jonathan Powell's 3.5 attempts per game, Veesaar leading the team in 3-point percentage. He attempts 2.7 a game. Derek Dixon second. He attempts 2.9 a game. And Jaydon Young, who has the 3rd best average, is attempting 1.5 a game. So it's this terrible concoction of the dudes that are shooting the best aren't shooting a high enough volume, and the dudes that are not shooting the best are shooting too high a volume. It is maddening. And so something's got to give there. But that, friends, is part of the concoction that is plaguing Carolina and what allows teams to double Caleb Wilson and Henri Veesaar without fear of outside reprisal. Because when they kick it out, it doesn't matter unless guys are driving and getting to the lane. But unless Henri Veesaar is kicking out to Henri Veesaar, right? Like, you see the problem. Now, obviously, it could be Caleb Wilson kicking out to Veesaar, which would be ideal. But if you're kicking out to him, if you're kicking out to Derek Dixon's been knocking him down, as has Jonathan Powell, Jaydon Young. So that's part of probably why you're seeing Jaydon Young a little bit more, but you're seeing Jonathan Powell a little bit less right now. So got to get that figured out from beyond the arc. But this 3-point percentage, just shy of 34% as a team, is not going to be good enough to get Carolina to the heights that they hope to get to if they can get things turned back around. If they don't get things turned back around, it doesn't matter anyway. But you've still got all these games left. You've got opportunities. It's time to make it happen. Now, I've got an interesting thought exercise to go through. Indiana basketball school. Cross that out. Indiana football school. This team just won the national championship 2 years after being completely irrelevant. Could that be the Tar Heels? We'll explore it coming up in just a second. Last night, the Indiana Hoosiers beat the Miami Hurricanes. Late interception thrown by Carson Beck seals it for Indiana after looking like they'd have a kind of a comfortable win. Miami kind of, I wouldn't say storming back, but fought back enough to make it a game down the stretch. Fernando Mendoza, my goodness, that like he's the dorkiest, most lovable kid. But he is a killer. You know what I mean? Like, he is so tough. That touchdown run and the hits that he took on that run, the roughing the quarterbacks that weren't called against him when his lip was all blood. I mean, my goodness, he is a tough customer. You wouldn't expect it to see him or to hear him talk, but man, it's really cool. And what Indiana has done in these first 2 years of the Curt Cignetti era has been insane. And so the question I've been thinking about is, okay, could that be the Tar Heels? Could North Carolina find their way to that reality? Because this time last offseason, prior to year one of Bill Belichick, there was all this optimism. There was all this hope of what could be. I felt it. I was hopeful for it. And it did not come to fruition. We saw that first drive of the season against TCU, and it's like, whoo, we might have something. We did not have something. There were some nice pieces, some nice players, some of whom are back. There's some guys that have come in, and you just don't know, I guess. But if year one taught us anything, I don't know that there should be that large amount of hope. But the question is, could that be the Heels? Well, one of the reasons I would say no is that it's not like Curt Cignetti came in, had a rough first year, and then this year suddenly turned it around. Lest ye forget, Indiana went to the playoff last year in Curt Cignetti's first year. So for Indiana, it started boom right away. They lost one game last regular season. That was it. And then they lost in the playoff. And then this year, year two, they go 16-0. This is a team. So there's that. It happened quickly. Obviously, it did not happen quickly for Carolina in year one. Part of that is timelines and things like that. I get it. Another reason I would say no is I mentioned it earlier in this show that one of the staples of this Indiana Hoosiers football team is their dedication to doing all the little things they need to do, to being disciplined, to not getting a bunch of yellow laundry on the rug of course, man, nearly bit themselves in the foot with that. They were 2nd-1, needed that first down to salt the game away, got the false start, and then the roughing the passer on Carson Beck, the 3rd play of that drive or something. And I was like, oh, Indiana, what a terrible thing that would be to be so disciplined. And then you had those 2 gaffes give away your season or your championship. Man, that would be tough. But anyway, I say all that to say Indiana is so disciplined. We didn't see that from Carolina in this year. And how many times did we talk in the offseason about, tell you what, I don't know how talented this team is or how many games they'll win, but you can take one thing to the bank. They will be disciplined and they will not beat themselves. I'd like to withdraw that from the bank because that did not turn out to be true. And it got, instead of getting better as the season wore on, it got worse. Carolina was penalized more and more and more and more as this season wore on. And so it's things of that nature where it's like, I did not see the things last year that felt like the DNA of what's allowed Indiana to flip it so well. And one of the things we've talked about in this transfer portal era is how quickly you can flip things, particularly in basketball, because there's only 5 dudes on the court at one time. So you land 2, 3, 4 in the portal, plus your nucleus, plus any freshmen you bring in, and you could be in great shape if you hit on the right guys. Football is harder to do that because you got 11 on the field at any one time. You need really 22 plus, however much in the depth chart beyond that. You can't just get 1 or 2 pieces and you're set. It's so much of it. However, in the post-game kind of commentary, they went back up to the booth with Reese Davis, or excuse me, with Chris Fowler and Herbie, and then we went back down to SVP's set, and in came Reese Davis to talk to him. And, so we heard all this dialogue, all this commentary for all of them. But in the midst of SVP interviewing Fowler and Herbie up in the booth, Chris Fowler said this: there's no more excuses out there in terms of, hey, I need 4 or 5 years to get this turned around. You don't get that because you just saw what Indiana has been able to do, not just this year. This year was the culmination of what started last year. And we see it in basketball too, right? Where Pat Kelsey comes into Louisville and they have a great year last year. I know they've had some injury issues, but they're looking strong again this year. There's no reason that you can't come in and make a difference. And so with North Carolina, I am going to withhold a little bit of judgment here on the football team because of how behind the 8 ball they were in terms of timelines last year. But this year becomes the year, then, the 2026 season, where now I say, judge away. Because if we don't see massive improvement, massive movement, massive talent betterness, then you're not going to get much more opportunity. Because, as Fowler said, there's no more excuses. This is the year you got to do it. Can Carolina be Indiana? Nothing in year 1 told me that the answer to that would be yes. But I'm willing to give it another year to see. You're not going to hear me out here dumping on the coaching staff, dumping on the player. I mean, that's just not me anyway. But you're not going to find me calling for Belichick's head or his resignation or anything like that. I want to see what happens this year, though. Can they build off of this? Can they see what's happened at Indiana and figure some things out? Now, it takes some not only special coaching, but special players. It takes here's another strike against this staff is all the internal stuff you heard last year, whether true or not. Man, when there's that level of rumor, when there's smoke, there's fire, right? And so I'm not seeing that vision right now, but I'm willing to give it another season. Can Carolina be Indiana? I don't think so as of right now, but we'll find out. All right, guys, that's it for today's show. Good to be together. I'm soul searching, man. That just, I keep going back to it. I'm so thankful for Mike to bring in that to me. On tomorrow's show, we will get ready for the Notre Dame game tomorrow night. We will be live after the game. As always, make plans to be with us for that. Win, lose, or draw, you can't draw because this is not the NFL, but win or lose, we will be there together. Would love to have you plug in with us. You guys, if you haven't subscribed to the show on YouTube and audio, do it right now so you don't miss a second of the show. If you haven't joined our new Everydayers Club, again, that link is in the show notes, as is the link for the Locked On Tar Heels Discord. Would love to see you there as well. You guys will talk tomorrow, and then we'll talk after the game. But until then, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Peace.